Meet Mike Wilson in Wales and me, Harmony Gates, in California in Mondays with Mike. Drop in on our wise, warm, spontaneous discussions where we explore the deep stuff of life, revealing the wisdom, insight, and truth that lives in us. Discover resources for living and sharing your fullest aliveness and for enhancing your capacity for safe, comfortable, emotionally connected relating. Welcome to Mondays with Mike, episode 50. In this episode, once we greet each other, we briefly talk about health and how our bodies are not mechanical, made up of parts, but how they are integrated. And so treating one part affects another part. We then go on to speak a little about politics and mild activism in the form of speaking up and out where we see political trends that bother us. Mike talks about totalitarianism imminent in the UK where he lives. He sees the politics happening there and some of the tweets and quotes that he's put out and his ability to take that risk. And on my case, I speak up about COVID and my disagreement with the way the United States is handling the COVID crisis and especially the mandatory vaccinations. So we hope you enjoy this and thank you for being with us to watch it. Yeah, you're sitting in a different place.
Yeah, I'm back in my armchair using my laptop.
Which reminds me somehow, just the way you sat back. I remember we talked about last week about you sitting differently in your chair. Do you remember that conversation?
Yeah. I went to see the osteopath on Wednesday. I'll see him again tomorrow. I was quite impressed. He's only a young chap, but I was impressed, so I'll go and see him again.
They all seem pretty young to me now.
Like police officers, yeah.
I know. Could it be that I'm older? Perhaps. Did you mention to him about the sitting? Did you remember at all?
I did. He didn't know anything particular to say about that.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So then maybe that stays on the eventual agenda to see if you get relief from him and if you still need some help or relief, maybe something I can offer. Yeah.
He gave me a couple of exercises too because he found some tightness in some leg muscles.
Yeah, but your pains are mostly in your back, right?
Yeah. All these bits are sort of connected with each other, aren't they?
They seem to be kind of an integrated whole. It's kind of revolutionary to think of it that way, given how medicine sort of separates all the parts out now and treats the eyes differently from like we're all made up all these distinct machine parts that can be replaced.
Yeah. It's not quite built like a machine, is it?
No,
the average body
seems not to be. Yeah. So how's your day been?
My day has been quiet and slow. I haven't achieved very much. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, it's been quiet and slow. I've done some reading, watched a bit of video, played a bit of a game on my iPad, and surfed around Twitter. I do a fair bit of twittering.
Yeah, you're now Mickey's Twitter mouthpiece.
Yeah.
How's that going?
That's going all right. I'm approaching it quite gently and slowly, but it's going okay.
Yeah.
How about, so you're 10 a.m. there,
Yeah, it's 10 a.m.
so it's
for
a bit
me.
early to ask how your day's going.
Except that it isn't. Well, you're right. Well, actually, I was thinking about yesterday a little and connecting it with what you shared, and my morning too, because they're connected, just like my body parts. Hello.
Mm,
um, Yesterday afternoon, I just got quite tired, and I'm not used to having that kind of, almost like a curtain falls, just like I can't do anything with my mind right now, anything. And somewhat my body. So I rested a bit, and then I felt quite disoriented. And it was early. It was like 4 in the afternoon when that
mm,
kind of um, engulfed me. And I realized later, I think it affected my mood today and kind of even last night. Um, it's brought up, what am I doing with myself after all? You used the word productive, I think, or you haven't achieved much. I forget which word you used when
mm,
we started this morning. And it makes me reflect on, is that what our life is for? To achieve things, and to be productive? Um, because when I'm not, then I feel unvaluable.
mm. Okay. So there are different motives for doing whatever work we do. Because I might be working to fulfill my mission in life, and I might be working so that people will love and respect me.
Yeah. Oh, and I might be working so I can love and respect myself.
Mm.
Yeah.
So I did something. Actually, I'm still wondering about living a purposeful life through my twilight years. And I did something yesterday which I thought was quite indicative of something, and I don't know what. In the UK, where I don't know how much of this gets broadcast to the rest of the world, we're in a pretty dark place, and it's getting worse. So
Dull,
we're just
DLL. Is that the word you used? Sorry, I couldn't make out.
dark,
Dark.
a
Okay.
dark. We're descending, unless it can be turned around. We're descending into one party state, a sort of totalitarian one party state where it's all been rigged in favour of one party, and they're actually rigging it even more at the moment. So we're heading for a pretty dark place politically, and I think obviously Plan A is to somehow prevent that, and I think at the moment I can see no way of preventing it. So there's two things that come up for me. There's first, how do we thrive in a totalitarian state? Because people did still manage to thrive in the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
And when the time comes, how do we get out of it? And you only get out of it when enough of the population have said, yeah, this is enough, no more of this. And there's two books that I think are particularly interesting and valuable. There's one by a guy who was a dissident in Soviet era Czechoslovakia, who eventually became president of Czechoslovakia, called The Power of the Powerless, his book.
The power of
The Powerless.
the power of the powers.
The Powerless.
Oh, the powerless. The power of the
And
powerless. Okay.
yeah. And
Okay.
the other is by Gene Sharp, American author, called From Dictatorship to Democracy. And that's basically the handbook of nonviolent resistance, nonviolent revolution,
Mm.
which has been used multiple times. Like photocopied pages, the essential photocopied pages have been shared all over the world. And
Hmm.
in some Arab Spring countries, they were absolutely gobsmacked to hear that it was written by an American. They had no idea. They just received this handful of photocopied pages.
Right.
So what I've been doing is finding an interesting, just a short sentence or or two or a paragraph, and tweeting it and tweeting with a link to where people can download the books. And as I was doing it yesterday afternoon, and I do this, I find different quotes and post them again because I'm just trying to keep on at people till they start listening.
Yeah.
And it occurred to me as I was doing it that that there's a little bit of risk for me in doing this.
Yeah.
If the authorities are monitoring what's happening, then there's a risk. And as I did it, I thought, I accept the risk. Yeah. And that was quite empowering thought, actually. Yeah, I'm potentially putting myself in danger. And I think, okay, yeah, I'm willing to do that for the cause. So that's the bit that I thought was interesting and instructive.
Yeah, that was the self-revelation there.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, because you did actually question it. You did notice that that was it's a bit high stakes, perhaps, what you're doing.
It wasn't so much questioning, it was suddenly noticing, oh yeah, the stakes are a little higher.
Right. The stakes are high. How do I want to now step in or not? And then working it out for yourself. That
we don't yet have a secret police who are going to drag me away in the middle of the night.
Not yet.
But for quite a few years, they've been hiring people as police officers. And we used to have policemen. British policemen used to have a reputation for perhaps being the world's nicest police officers. But I don't know, for sort of 20 years, they've been hiring thugs and bullies.
Yeah.
And some, particularly the Metropolitan Police, who police London, have become more like a violent gang. They've become more and more detached from the people that they are supposed to be caring for, and more violently breaking up even peaceful protests.
Yeah.
Sometimes quite shocking what we see in the news about how they're behaving. So there are people in that police force, at least, who would very, very happily drag people away in the middle of the night.
Yeah. And maybe kill them by choking them, by putting their knee on their neck for
whatever. Quite possibly.
Yeah. See, the trend you're describing is quite apparent to me also in the United States. Most blatantly for me through this whole COVID virus, emergency powers, mandates for vaccinations, you know, misrepresenting statistics. I've been doing a lot of deep research kind of into that. And it's scary how close to a totalitarian situation this nation, not only just recently, you know, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but, you know, when I look past the mainstream narrative and the way we're taught in school and the way the textbooks are, you know, written from a certain point of view, I see, wow, you know, we aren't, you know, we're free to consume, and lots of products to consume. Yeah. And you go to the stores and there's a million choices for each kind of product. But there are people on the streets living, more and more people living on the streets. And our police forces are also sort of guerrilla trained. You know, they're like military trained almost in some ways, you know, with the equipment too. So I have a similar, a little bit going on, this kind of, well, I'm not tweeting, but it showed up for me just even on my Facebook page. I know you don't do Facebook, but that's kind of the one place I have a little bit of a social media front, you know, and that in my YouTube channel. And I've been reticent to post anything about how I think about the COVID because it's very polarized. extremely polarized here. And the non-vaccinated people are being blamed heavily for the numbers of people that aren't even the true numbers, but the numbers of people hospitalized or dying or infected, which really means almost nothing. Infection is like the flu. For some people, it's very serious. And I've been very disappointed trying to actually connect with a few people and inform. And it's such a huge pushback. One of them's a doctor, and he just won't listen at all. I felt like each time I even posted on my Facebook page, and then he said underneath it, please don't share this information. It's false, from my posting. And I've got a VPN, and I try to kind of, I don't know what I really have in terms of staying discreet or non-visible in some ways. And so I'm writing that a little bit myself. I want to write this book, but I also look what's happening. And do I want to put energy into that? Is there a reward in that? Is it mostly about just surviving through it? As you say. And then there's another layer for me, which is look at my age. How much of this am I going to have to endure before I kick the bucket? I'm not 20 where I could put my life depends on changing this, or standing up. And yet my life is only so many years left. So I can afford to be risky with it, perhaps, as well.
And I mean, yeah, at our age, different things are asked of us.
Yeah.
You're probably not going to be climbing a tree. I mean, this happened here. People climb trees and chain themselves to the top of trees to stop the trees being cut down.
Right.
People dig underground tunnels and live in the tunnels for months on end to stop places being bulldozed to build motorways.
Exactly. Yeah.
And they're mostly in their 20s and 30s.
Exactly.
Which comes as no surprise. Yeah, so there are different things that different people can do.
And different elements. And in my own way, I've been connecting with people in solidarity with the kind of resistors, and doing my best to the way that I have found is the most rewarding for me, at least, and I think effective also, is to, like, I went to my medical institution down here. Kaiser is this big, medical industrial complex right at the base of my hill that are my insurance, my medical insurance, along with Medicare, which is the nationwide program. And I went in to have a little treatment on my finger, and the nurse was a young Black woman who I immediately hit it off with humor. I noticed her tennis shoes. They were bright orange, and I went, oh, blinded by your shoes. So that was fun. And then mentioned in some kind of way, I'm not sure, about just my way to kind of check, like, how are you about the COVID thing? And she was completely woke, in my opinion, and not on board with the mandates and with the enforcements and with all of that. And I think it was really, it just felt amazing to share that with her, and to have her see me and me see her and us see each other, and support and reinforce each other in that way. Like, because I know she can't be outspoken where she works. She'd be fired. So it's like, yeah, let's talk about this in private in the room. And I'm like,
does that mean she could lose her job if she doesn't get vaccinated eventually?
I think so. That's what they're demanding. In fact, nationwide now. It's very
stepping towards
draconian.
that in the UK.
Yeah.
People in health and social care situations.
That and the schools here, the colleges are requiring students to be vaccinated, and even the grammar schools, even the young kids, 5, 6, 7 years old and younger, who statistically have almost zero bad consequences in case they catch this virus.
That's interesting. In the UK, I've heard nothing about. They still haven't quite decided whether to vaccinate kids or not. And I think before the pandemic, I think kids had to be vaccinated against things like polio, diphtheria, and what have you, before they could start school.
Yes.
And I went to university as a mature student, and I had to get a vaccination for, I forgot what it's called. It doesn't really matter. There was something I had never been vaccinated for, and in
Measles,
my 40s, I had
maybe
to get
measles and mumps. That's one of the regular ones. Measles, mumps, and rubella, MMR. They're all
I've
three.
had all of those.
Okay,
So I'd have antibodies.
something new.
I can't remember what I mean. Something that's been around for years, but there wasn't a vaccine for. And it turned out that was pointless, because beyond middle age, it's not an issue, and it's only a problem for younger people. But the vaccine wouldn't have done me any harm, but I wouldn't have been able to start college without it.
Yeah, that's the they're saying, well, it's not coercion. You can choose, but you'll lose your job, and your child can't go to school, and you can't go to restaurants, and maybe you won't be able to go into the markets anymore either. So it's and you don't have to go along with this, but my research shows me that vaccine actually is very temporary, if at all. Help. All of the vaccines, they lose their
talking about
potency.
booster shots in the UK.
Yeah, the booster shots, and then
I haven't been offered one yet, but I will take it when it's offered.
Okay.
They're starting with people over 50, I believe.
Yeah. I imagine there
list.
will be endless booster shots, because from the science I've looked at, the vaccine is very, very, very specific to only one spike protein, and it doesn't really create antibodies for the whole virus. So anytime the virus changes even a little, then you need a new vaccine.
Okay, the information I got was that it gives some protection against the Delta variant, when the Delta variant came out after the vaccine was there. So again, I mean, people can still get ill. They are less likely to get as ill.
Well, and I personally, we won't go there, because I can see it would be really pretty contentious, but I think what we're being told isn't entirely honest, actually. So, I would question whether that's the truth or not, especially when you look at Israel and other countries. Yeah.
If you don't trust the doctors and the people who make the vaccines, then yeah, you're screwed.
Yeah. I don't. And I don't think they're being honest about the side effects of the vaccines at all either. That's been very hidden from my research. And they're severe. It can be very severe. So,
depends what you mean by research, of course. I mean, have you got a laboratory and a team of chemistry PhDs?
No, but I've looked at the experts that have been censored, and I think it's quite interesting that so many people are being censored. Why would you want to do that? Like
public safety.
Really?
So there's a British guy, whose name I can't remember, who now lives in a palace, basically, in the USA. He does speak. He's the guy who came up with the idea that the MMR vaccine, the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine, causes autism.
Yeah, I've looked at him.
Which was shown to be untrue.
No.
And also that there's a single vaccine for each, and he had investments in those three companies.
Really? How much do you think Pfizer and Moderna and Johnson & Johnson are invested in their vaccines, and the bureaucrats that are supporting them?
Oh, there's no doubt there's a huge amount of money.
Billions and billions and billions.
Oh, it's big business, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I want to change the subject, because I disagree with your research, and I don't want to try to justify mine. at this
Yeah,
moment.
yours isn't research. Yours is reading conspiracy theory websites that agree
No,
with your
that's not
prejudice.
what. No, that's not. But that's your assumption. Yeah,
Mm.
and that's the one I really am sad and sort of resentful that when I have a different point of view, the immediate assumption is that I'm a conspiracy theorist, that I'm down the rabbit hole and I'm a Trump supporter and whatnot, whatnot, whatnot. And that is what is assumed. So whatever information I provide is immediately discounted. So that's what I'm up against. It's like, wow. I kind of wonder what happened if there were anybody in Germany that spoke up and said, hey, maybe we don't want to go along with this Hitler guy. You know, what happened to those people? Did they get completely overridden by those who were gung-ho with the government? I mean, it just, to me, dissenting
I don't
voices.
see the equivalence at all there.
Oh, I do. Woo! I do big time. Yeah. Yeah. But then it does depend a lot on, you know, like, have you gone to the chemistry labs and done the tests?
No,
So
no,
how,
I choose to trust the doctors that
yeah,
have said this is the safest way, this is the best way, the safest way.
yeah.
There's any medical procedure carries a risk. So, and they're saying is that the risk from the vaccine is 1,000 or more times smaller than the risk of the disease, the virus. And I choose to trust the doctors when they say that.
What I'm curious about the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of doctors in the US who, at the risk of losing their medical license, have banded together to say, no, this is not the truth. What you've been told is not the truth. We are doctors. We are working with patients. This is what we're seeing, not what you're being told. What about them? What
I've
could be
not
possibly
not
their
heard of
motive?
there being. I've not heard of there being any doctors at all like that in the UK.
Oh, well, in the US, there's a large number. You have to look to find them because they're censored for the most part, but they're, and for me, you know, part of how I assess, aside from the actual documentation that they're providing, is how do I feel when I hear them talk? Are they sort of, you know, can I connect with them? You know, can I feel their sincerity or not? Yeah, and I look deeper than that, but that's kind of right away. Wow, here's somebody just absolutely sincere, absolutely blown away at what's going on, and has the credentials and the experience to tell what they're like whistleblowers to me. They feel like whistleblowers who have information, and in this country, a whistleblower is going to go to jail basically at this point.
I thought you had laws to protect whistleblowers in the US.
You would think.
I thought there were.
Yeah, well, uh, Chelsea Manning, and I can't come up with names right now. I can feel my system is upset. The Wikipedia guy, these people are pursued relentlessly.
Oh, the WikiLeaks guy, yeah.
Yeah, and there's another guy who's in, I think he's
The
still in
guy's in
Russia.
Russia, whose name I've
Yeah,
forgotten as well.
yeah,
Snowden.
Snowden. Yeah,
Mm.
and you know, these are not the things they revealed are not they, in my opinion, they do not fall under the blanket national security. I think that's just pulled out as a way to hide everything. I really do. There's just so much going on. So anyway, let me just take a pause here because I can feel myself tightening around the whole thing.
We have 3 minutes.
Yeah, we do.
How should we close?
Yeah, let's take a pause and then we'll do maybe some appreciations if we can do that. Woo. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for showing up here consistently with me. I really appreciate that. I can appreciate that you have a different point of view, and I'm aware I don't really want to do battle or, debate even, because it just, I don't get very far with it. So, yeah. And I guess appreciation to those who I can connect with who are sharing my point of view. I guess we could say it that way. Yeah. Because that feels comforting. Yeah. And I appreciate that you're tweeting, to make a difference and willing to take the risk of speaking out against what feels like encroaching tyranny, because on that level we have something deeply in common. So I have that shared reality with you.
Oh yeah, it's good to have that in common, isn't it? Yeah, I appreciate that as well. And I'm really glad we've limited to half an hour, because we're finishing before I'm exhausted.
Wonderful. That's good.
Yeah, so that feels, I'm very content with that.
Good. The
So
experiment
I hope
paid
it
off.
continues to. Yeah, so I hope it continues. You mentioned something we could talk about focusing on one or the other for the whole call, and we never got around to that conversation, but that's still there to be had.
Good. Yeah, that is part of what, but we got some good information, especially in terms of your own nervous system. So I'm
Yeah,
pleased with that. Yeah.
great.
Good. So next week, can we do the same time and for a half an
There we
hour?
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. See you then.
Okay. Be well.
Bye bye.
Thank you for spending this time with us. If you liked this podcast, please click the like button and subscribe to the channel to stay with us. And tell us what you thought of this episode. We love to read your thoughts in the comment section.